There have been people trying to tell us that the Donald Trump hush money misdemeanor case is a weak piece of weaponized garbage since long before the charges were ever announced. And every single one of these people is more credible than Michael Cohen. And one of the most credible, definitely the most interesting, is a guy named Robert Costello, who was Michael Cohen's, the guy's a criminal defense attorney, and he was Michael Cohen's legal advisor because, of course, every good witness against Donald Trump has got to have their own criminal defense team, right? Obviously. And this guy, by all accounts, he sounds like a stand-up guy and definitely a great attorney. He's got some pedigree. And unlike Michael Cohen, who secretly recorded his clients, this guy got the attorney-client privilege waived before he talked about the case to anyone, to Congress, to the grand juries, to the TV, to anyone. And he testified yesterday before Congress. And one of the interesting things that happened, Dan Goldman, of all people, accused him of jury tampering. That's the same Dan Goldman who took it upon himself to coach and prep Michael Cohen, a sitting member of Congress, coaching and prepping Michael Cohen for his testimony that he's given today. And I'll go in depth about what he said to Congress, but big surprise, he's an honest guy, so it's basically exactly what he told Tucker Carlson a year ago. And it's funny, I mean, the truth sort of has that characteristic. It stays the same. It stays consistent, unlike Cohen's testimony. But this is a long clip, but bear with me. It's important to watch. This shows everything that this case is about, and it's undeniable.
But from the leaks that you have read in, say, the New York Times, how do you assess this case?
Weak, to say the least. I just spent 2 hours or so testifying before the grand jury in downtown Manhattan, and I got my point across, although it was clear to me that the Manhattan DA's office did not want to get to the truth. I need to explain that a little bit. I called them up after I saw Michael Cohen on TV stating things that he said he was going to tell the grand jury and had told the grand jury that were contrary to what he told us when we first represented him in April of 2018. So I'm sitting at home watching these lies, and I said, I've got to do something about it. I don't represent Donald Trump, but I do stand for justice, and I think I have a legal obligation to inform both sides. So that's what I did. I had a ton of documents that I had prepared back in 2019 for the Department of Justice. The U.S. Attorney's Office called me up and said, Mr. Costello, we would like to talk to you about your representation of Michael Cohen. I laughed and said, can I presume you have a waiver of the attorney-client privilege? And they said, you presume correctly. I said, fine, send it over. I'll be delighted to talk to you. That waiver is very clear. And once we had that, I prepared 330 emails, a bunch of text messages. I prepared a contemporaneous report of our first meeting with Michael Cohen at the Regency Hotel in Manhattan, as well as a contemporaneous notes of the interview I had for 2 hours with the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York, as well as contemporaneous notes of an interview by the House Committee on Intelligence, who sent 3 investigators to my office, one of whom is now Dan Goldman, a congressman here in New York. So I had all of this material ready. I sent it to Donald Trump's lawyer, and I sent it to the Manhattan DA's office. And I contacted the Manhattan DA's office, and I asked, could we meet with Alvin Bragg? Because I wanted to present this to Alvin Bragg as I had presented it to the Southern District. I wanted him to look me in the eye and assess my credibility. Did I have more credibility than Michael Cohen? Because Michael Cohen, in my opinion, was lying about just about everything. I specifically told them that there were 2 main points that I wanted to make clear. That Cohen had told us that when we first met him, that he was suicidal. Why is that important? Because when you're suicidal, thinking that that's the only way out of your legal mess, and you're presented with the following options, that you can cooperate against Donald Trump and provide information that would get you a get-out-of-jail-free card, and you respond to us, I do not have any information on Donald Trump. And he said it many times during that 2-hour meeting. I swear to God, Bob, I don't have anything on Donald Trump. And I had my law partner who knew Michael Cohen for 10 years on Columbia Grammar and Prep School here in Manhattan because Cohen was on the board of directors.
Yeah.
And when I heard him say that he was suicidal the weekend before, standing on the roof of the Regency Hotel, I didn't know whether he was a drama queen or telling the truth. So I looked at my partner, and he shook his head and nodded, I think he's telling the truth. And later on, we got that corroborated by the Reverend Jerry Falwell and his wife, who had dinner with Michael Cohen, who told him the same thing. Why is that important? Because when you're willing to give up your life in order to avoid these legal troubles, when they're insurmountable to you, and you're offered a way out, so all you have to do is cooperate on Donald Trump. Do you have anything on Donald Trump? And he says no repeatedly. I swear to God, Bob, I don't have anything. Then you know that you've got a guy who probably doesn't have anything. It's certainly easier to give up information on Donald Trump than it is to kill yourself. On top of that, while he's making these speeches during 2-hour period, he's marching up and down on the other side of the conference table like a tiger in the zoo, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. He looked like he hadn't slept in 5 days. He looked like somebody who was suicidal. And every once in a while, he would stop and point at us. And when I say once in a while, he did this at least 20 times and said, guys, I want you to know, I will do whatever the F I have to do. I will never spend 1 day in jail. Now, what he's saying is, I'll lie, cheat, steal, shoot somebody. I will not spend a day in jail. Do you think a guy whose mentality is that is going to not admit that he has information on Donald Trump? But having said that, the DA's office didn't ask me questions to bring that up. And I brought it up anyway. I ignored their questions and simply gave them the information. I'm hearing rap in my ear, left and right. I'll continue if you want, but
let me just ask you one final question, if it's okay, Mr. Costello.
Sure.
If you were the DA, if you were a prosecutor and you were trying to be fair and honest and serve the law rather than a political agenda, you'd want to know that, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. And I told them and told the grand jury today, I was deputy chief of the criminal division of the U.S. Attorneys for the Southern District. I said I wouldn't touch a witness like Michael Cohen for any amount of money. You simply cannot rely upon this guy. And tonight, he was on another station denying that he waived the attorney-client privilege. Here it is, in writing, and that's his signature on the second page. So
that's unbelievable.
I guess he didn't know that, and the district attorney didn't know that. And I told them, Michael Cohen has been in your office 20 times and twice in the grand jury, and he forgot to tell you that he waived the attorney-client privilege 22 times? I mean, really, is this the kind of witness you want to ride to the finish line? Not in my book.
They don't, I think all they care about is the finish line. But I sure appreciate the information that you brought us tonight.
That's a year ago, man. And these are facts that the entire prosecution team knows. These are facts that they have known. This is a witness that I'm sure that they have to expect this guy to be called, right? I mean, a guy that knows every I and every T about the government's star witness. And honestly, I think that these prosecutors, I'm sure they found a way to manipulate it all, but they have got to be guilty of suborning perjury because they know what this man says is true. And this is what he said, some of what he said yesterday about Stormy Daniels.
He didn't believe the allegation of the Stormy Daniels story, that he thought the story would be embarrassing for Trump and especially for Melania, so he decided he would take care of it himself.
Absolutely, and that is contrary to what this guy testified to in court in New York yesterday.
Well, and what's not being talked about is your next paragraph, like the reason and his motivation for that. So if you could just kind of walk through that for the committee.
Yeah, obviously, when we started to talk about the NDAs, and this is the very first meeting at the Regency Hotel, when, by the way, Rudy Giuliani was not involved in representing Donald Trump at that time. Cohen testified that it was a conspiracy between Giuliani and Costello as of this date. Totally false. In any event, he also said that he didn't discuss the Stormy Daniels matter with us, and he certainly did. I specifically asked him because he kept on going back saying, I can't believe they're trying to put me in jail for these NDAs. So I said, Michael, tell me about the NDA. Tell me about Stormy Daniels. What did you do? He said, I got a call from a lawyer representing Stormy Daniels who represented that she was going to testify that Donald Trump had sex with Stormy Daniels. Michael Cohen said, I didn't believe the allegation, but I knew that such an allegation would be terribly embarrassing. He said it would be embarrassing. He focused on Melania Trump. He said, I didn't want to embarrass Melania Trump. He said, that's why I decided to take care of this on my own. Right. I went back to that several times. You did this on your own? On my own. Did Donald Trump have anything to do with it? No. Did you get the money from Donald Trump? No. From any of his organizations? No. From anybody connected to Donald Trump? No. Where did you get the money? I took out a HELOC loan against my property. I said, why would you do that? He said, I didn't want anybody to know where I got this money. I didn't want Melania to know. I didn't want my own wife to know because she's in charge, he said, of the Cohen family finances. He said if she saw money coming out of my account, she'd ask me 100 questions, and I didn't want to answer any of them. It was clear after talking to him for several days after that, whenever we talked on the phone or in my office, that he kept on bringing up the subject that he felt he was betrayed by.
They had to know that this is not a guy who would sit silent while they do this to the justice system that he has dedicated his entire life to. And I'm not sure what their plan could be. I mean, this is a guy, they can't go near his credibility. And still, they don't care. They still move forward with this testimony. They still move forward with this case. And I think that that proves this is not about a conviction. This is about damage. This is about lawfare to tie Donald Trump up and keep him off the campaign trail. But honestly, I think it is a major, major miscalculation because if they end up with anything other than a guilty verdict, it's going to be a massive backfire, man. And honestly, even if by some kind of insane luck they get a conviction, I'm thinking that's going to backfire too. And it should. I mean, it should all backfire. This is exactly what you get when you play these kind of games. You know, when you destroy the court system for politics, I mean, they deserve every bit of backfire that's coming their way. And I'm going to show Costello his opening statement before Congress yesterday. It's a long one. I'm going to leave you with that. But again, it's important to watch. I'll end with that, guys. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Take a look at this.
My name is Bob Costello. I've been an attorney for 51 years, and I'm the former assistant U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York, where I was deputy chief of the criminal division. I am not now, nor have I ever been, an attorney for Donald Trump, any of his family members, or any of his businesses. I've represented quite a number of high-profile individuals, but never Donald Trump. During the period April 2018 to July 2018, I represented Michael Cohen. Today, I can talk to you about what Michael Cohen told my law partner and me because Michael Cohen waived the attorney-client privilege at the request of the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York. The reason was Michael Cohen had pled guilty to 8 felony counts in the Southern District and was seeking to lessen his sentence. And he thought he could be clever by going into the U.S. Attorney's Office and lying about cooperation. Michael Cohen went to the U.S. Attorney's Office and accused Rudy Giuliani and myself of conspiring to obstruct justice by tampering with a witness, namely Michael Cohen. The story, which they were floating at the time and his lawyers put out in the various newspapers, was that we had dangled a pardon under Michael Cohen's nose in order to keep him quiet so that he wouldn't testify against Donald Trump. When I received the call from the U.S. Attorney's Office saying, Bob, we'd like to talk to you about your representation of Michael Cohen, I said to them, can I presume that you guys are sitting there with a copy of the waiver of the attorney-client privilege? And they said, you presume correctly. I told them to scan it over to me, and once I received it, I'd be delighted to talk to them. And I did. I went down to 1 St. Andrews Plaza with a lawyer who had been the chief of the criminal division when I was deputy chief, Tom Fitzpatrick. And on the way into the office, he said to me, Bob, aren't you nervous? I said, what for? I'm going to tell the truth, and I have documentary evidence that corroborates me 6 ways from Sunday. I said, there's nothing to be nervous about. And in fact, I said, I'll bet you $10 I'll have these people laughing within 15 minutes. I won the bet. I went up and I sat with 2 assistant U.S. attorneys, Tom McKay and Nick Rose, as well as 2 FBI agents whose names, unfortunately, I don't remember. We had a grand old time. I explained our entire history with Michael Cohen through emails and text messages. I explained the many, many lies that Michael Cohen told us. Most especially, I told them that when we first met Michael Cohen in April of 2018, keeping in mind now that I read Michael Cohen's testimony from yesterday's trial in New York on the way down on the train, and virtually every statement he made about me was another lie, a lie that can be proven not just by me denying it, but by myself, Jeff Citron, or Rudy Giuliani, or emails or text messages.
virtually every statement that he made. What he tries to do is he cherry picks certain emails or text messages and tries to make them look like something else. The story he told yesterday was that Rudy Giuliani and I were somehow conspiring to try and keep him quiet, to try and keep him from flipping. That's the term we use in the trade for cooperating. That's ridiculous. The first day that we met with Michael Cohen at the Regency Hotel, at his request, and there's email correspondence that show this, we went up there. I had never met Michael Cohen before. I didn't have any idea who he was or what sort of problem he was in. I saw this guy in a conference room at the Regency Hotel marching back and forth like a tiger in a cage. He was absolutely manic. He looked like he hadn't slept in 4 or 5 days. And he kept on, he knew my partner, Jeff Citron, for 10 years. I didn't know the guy. He kept on pounding on the table throughout his speeches that day. Guys, I want you to know, I will do whatever the F I have to do. I will never spend 1 day in jail. He had to say that at least 10 times, maybe 20. It was his constant litany as he walked back and forth. So I said, Michael, sit down. We need to discuss what's going on here. He told us about the raid, that his offices had been raided, his home had been raided. And he said, I didn't do anything wrong, guys. I don't know what they're looking for. And I said, Michael, the people in the Southern District of New York are very smart people. They got a search warrant for a lawyer's office. You can't do that just by going to the U.S. attorney. You need to go to Maine Justice and get approval from Maine Justice. You need to show them that you have proof that a crime has been committed and that the evidence of that crime is going to exist at the site to be examined. I said, so Michael, these people think that you did something wrong. What is it? I said, this is protected by attorney-client privilege, and it was until he waived the attorney-client privilege. I swear to God, Bob, I didn't do anything wrong. In fact, I'm cooperating with the special counsel. I'm cooperating with Congress. Of course, he forgot to tell us that he lied to Congress, but that was part and parcel of the way Michael Cohen is. So I sat him down and I said, look, Michael, clearly here, you're not the target. Nobody's ever heard of Michael Cohen, but you are the lawyer for President Trump, and clearly that's their target. And let me explain to you how things work. When they get a search warrant, they're looking to gather evidence. They already have evidence against you for something, but you haven't told us what it is. And they are going to roll over you. You're just a bump in the road. Their target is Donald Trump. So I want you to think carefully now. And by the way, up to this point, he had told us when he introduced himself to us that 2 nights before, he was on the roof of the hotel, of the Regency Hotel, seriously considering jumping off, committing suicide, because he couldn't handle the pressure of the legal problems that he saw coming his way. And what he wanted to find out from us that day was his escape route. That's what he called it. Guys, you have to tell me what my escape route is. What can I do to get out of this? And I did. My obligation as a lawyer at that point in time was to explain to him what his options were. Clearly, one of his options was to cooperate. And I said to him, I said, Michael, the way this works is if you have truthful information about Donald Trump, that's clearly what they're looking for, I can have all your legal problems solved by the end of the week. His response, I swear to God, Bob, I don't have anything on Donald Trump. I said, Michael, I want you to think carefully about this. I probably came back to this subject 10 or 20 times during the 2-hour period. Every time I brought it up, every time he answered, I swear to God, Bob, I don't have anything on Donald Trump. I said, Michael, whatever you have has to be truthful. If you think you can go in there and tell these people lies, you're crazy. It's going to backfire on you. You can't do that. So do you have anything on Donald Trump? Probably the 5th or the 6th time I got around to doing that, he said, well, I know that money is missing from the Trump inaugural ball. I said, is Donald Trump involved in that? No. Does Donald Trump know anything about that? No. I said, Michael, that's useless. You're not going anywhere with that. You asked me for your escape route. I'm telling you your escape route. All you have to do is be truthful if you have some real evidence on Donald Trump. His litany was the same all the time. I don't have anything on Donald Trump. This is exactly the opposite to what I saw him say on TV. He was telling the grand jury in Manhattan and the district attorney's office. He said, I went in there, I believe, if my memory is correct, 20 times, including 2 appearances in the grand jury, 18 times preparation sessions with the DA's office. I was sitting at home listening to this, And I said, that's nonsense. That's not what he told Jeff Citron and myself. And I decided at that point in time, I've got to make it known to both the defense and the prosecution what the real story is, who this guy really is. So I provided all this material to Donald Trump's lawyers, and I provided it to the Manhattan DA's office. And I asked for a meeting with District Attorney Bragg, because I wanted to go in there, let him look me in the eye, and let me explain all of the stuff that we had on Michael Cohen that showed that he's an inveterate liar. The guy can't be trusted. Bragg turned me down. But what he did say was, I'll let you have a meeting with the assistant district attorneys. Now, when the
Mr.
Trump
Costello,
people,
we need you just to
I'm sorry, when the Trump people
finish up quickly.
heard about all of this, they insisted, as was their right under the law, that the DA put me before the grand jury.
Right.
So that I was scheduled for a Monday. On the Friday before, I gave the DA's office the courtesy of a Zoom conference for about an hour and a half. 8 assistant district attorneys and me on the other end. I explained, they didn't really ask me any questions. They just said, what do you want to say? Nice warm greeting for somebody who's trying to show them the right path quietly and privately so that they could correct their error before they made it.